Okay, we are in the middle of Perek Yudal. This is actually a fascinating Perek because here in this chapter you have a natural separation of the beginning to the end of the chapter. You have a new paragraph that forms over here. And here, the Alter Rebbe is coming to answer one of the basic questions that are asked on the first page of Tanya, and he's going to give us some really fascinating advice that we need to really think about. Again, we're talking about Midas HaBeinani. We're talking about the idea of every person at every moment can make that moment count. They could choose to be Superman. They could choose to be the greatest person that they could possibly be. It's not about the level of a person. We're talking about it's the moments of time. That's what we're referring to. At any given moment of time, a person has the potential to change himself, to elevate himself, elevate the world. Right? So now he goes on to say, so if you go back to the first line in the entire book, where we started off with Tanya B'Sof Perek Gimel Denija. So it says, right at the end of the third chapter of Nida, it says over there that every soul that comes down into this world is made to swear. Mashbiim oiso, make them swear, Tiye tzadik ve'al tiye rasha. Be a tzadik and don't be a rasha. So, l'cha'ira, on the surface, this seems like a very strange swearing. It's a very strange oath. If you're going to swear, be a tzaddik, okay, so then obviously you're not going to be a rasha, right? And if you're going to swear, don't be a rasha, then obviously you're going to be a tzaddik. That's what it seems like at first glance. So he says like this, on the surface, it's very wondrous. If every soul is made to swear to be a tzaddik, why do we have to make the soul swear once again that he shouldn't be a rasha? That's the basic question. Okay? Now, we already know that there is a concept called the Beinani. We've already discussed this thoroughly. So we understand there is this third possibility here, right? So the idea of the swearing of don't be a rasha makes a lot of sense. Why does it make a lot of sense? Because, as we said just a moment ago, that at any given moment, we could decide that we are not going to allow our animal souls to take us over. That's what it means. In other words, what is a rasha? A rasha, right, an evil, so to speak, an evil person in the exact translation, is someone who allows his animal soul to take him over, right? And it does all different types of quote-unquote bad things, right? Because the animal soul took him over. That's the idea of being a rasha. So what is the soul made to swear? Don't be a rasha. So that makes a lot of sense. So make us swear that don't be a rasha. And what am I going to be? God willing, I'll be a Beinani. At every given moment. Right? Like we said all the way in the beginning of our chapter. V'hine midas Beinani, he midas kol adam acharecha kol adam yimshach, shekol adam yochol lios Beinani b'chol eis b'chol shah. Every single person could be a Beinani at any given moment of time. So that oath makes a lot of sense. The oath that doesn't make sense, based on everything that we've been talking about, is this oath that says, Tihi rasha, tihi tzaddik, be a tzaddik. That is hard to say that makes sense. Why? Because we just got through talking about for the past 5 chapters, how a tzaddik is someone that is holding on to or has within himself a very, very high level soul that's coming from the highest spiritual worlds, that is coming down into my body. And because it's coming down into my body from such a high level, and it's not just that it's coming down from a high level, it's going in like they used to have, remember outside of my apartment in London, you could see the Concorde would be flying, and you'd see it, coming in, whatever it was, like twice a day into Heathrow Airport, right? And it was just like, it made so much noise, and like you had to, when an airplane flies by, you get used to it, right? But the Concorde, when it came by, it's like it was just, you couldn't believe how much noise it would make. So everyone would look out the windows. It's like, oh my gosh, there it goes, right? So this is like the soul coming, right? The soul is coming, right, on a Concorde jet, from the highest spiritual worlds all the way down into my body. So if that's the case, right, the animal soul, as we've been talking about, has no chance. Has no chance with the tzaddik. It naturally, like we just explained above, it has an ava b'tanugim, this incredible love of delights, as it's translated, right? This love of this unbelievable pleasure in Hashem, in God. And so therefore, automatically, it's disgusted by everything that is not godly. So, come on. How could you make me swear to hate tzaddik? That is something that is so beyond my control. It's not something that I could choose. Sure, I'd love to be a tzaddik. Show me, where do I, sign on the dotted line, problem, here we go. But we just got through saying throughout the entire last 5 chapters of Tanya that this is basically something that is way beyond the ordinary individual. 99% of all human beings are not going to have that opportunity. So how could you make me swear? I hope that makes sense. So now we have a problem. Like he says. So because not every person is going to zoicha, is going to merit Leo tzaddik, to be a tzaddik. Ve'ein la'adam mishpat ha'bechira b'zeh. Now look at the words that he's using here. This is not within his choice. Now contrast this to what we said on the opposite page, right, on chapter 14 that we're discussing here, right, where we said over there that everyone, right, has ha'bechira v'ha'yacholis v'harishus, right, and the sunnah l'kol adam. That the bechira, the choice, the yicholos, the capability, the reshus, right, is given over to every single person to do. So here he's saying it's not that way. It's not that it's up to my bechira. It's not that it's up to my choice. This is not something that I could choose. I can't just sign on the dotted line. This is not something that I could choose, that I want to control myself at this moment, or I want to accomplish whatever it is. It's not up to me. So if it's not up to me, how can I possibly swear falsely? Because that's basically what it is. It's a false oath. That's what I'm doing here. Right? Mishpat bechira b'zeh kol kach lihisanig alavaya be'emes. Right? That not everyone could possibly have the choice to have this unbelievable pleasure with Hashem to such an extent. B'shiyeh hara ma'us mamish. And therefore the evil will be so disgusting in my eyes that there isn't a possibility that I would go after anything like that. It's not practical. So v'lachein mashpiyim mashenis al tiyeh rasha akol panim. So now it makes sense, at least the second swearing. The second swearing, right, of don't be a rasha, at the very least don't be a rasha. Okay, shebizeh mishpat abachira v'harishus nasuna lekol adam, like we said before. That's something that each person has a choice to make. And he has the capability to win out over his animal soul. He has that capability. That's all within his grasp. It's not a problem. He could do it. It's not easy. It's not easy to constantly win out over yourself, right? Who is the strongest person, right, in the whole world? This person that could win out over his Yetzer Hara, to control himself. And we're all battling this every single day. 1,000,000 times a day from so many different angles. But that at least is within my capabilities. Right? Because like he says, Habachira Barashus Nesuna is the choice and the capability is given over to every person, Limshol, to win out over Beruach Taivaso, over the spirit of his desires, his inclination, Shebelibo, right, that's coming from his heart. That I could do. V'lichvoish Yetzara, and to conquer his Yetzer Hara. Shelo yeh rasha, to not be a rasha, afilu sha'achas kol yamav, even for one instant all the days of his life. So even though every single day he wakes up in the morning and he's challenged by all different types of negativity and desires and things that are ego building and all things that are really things that he knows, inside of himself that this is not a direction I should be going in. Nevertheless, he's challenged. He's constantly challenged, right? And it's a hard job to do, to win out, to make a plan and to literally follow the plan to win. It's hard, but at least it's within my capabilities, right? No one's going to say it's easy. Whether it refers to not doing evil things, bad things, or whether it means doing good things. And like it says, there's no good like the Torah. Because like we said all the way back in the first chapter, right, that a person should be constantly learning Torah, right, and in all of his, that's just the way it needs to be, all day long as much as he can. Right? Obviously, that refers to someone who has the opportunity to learn Torah. Someone who's in the working world has to work and do, provide for himself, for his family, and then when he has free time, he also should have a kvias, like it says, a fixed times to learn Torah, to learn the hidden aspects of the Torah, to learn the revealed aspects of the Torah, to learn, right, God's will and wisdom, like he says in chapter 5 of Tanya. Right? That's the idea. So that's all makes sense. So now we're stuck because we know that our soul, before we entered into this world, it did swear. It swore that I should be a tzaddik. And it seems like that is totally not a realistic even possibility. So why would Hashem make us do this? Why would Hashem make us swear? It doesn't make any sense. So he says now, Achal kolponim tzarich likboya lo esim. So he says like this. It's true, and this is how we're going to go for the rest of the parak here. It's true that it's not given over to me to decide whether I'm going to be a tzaddik or not. But there are certain things that I have within my jurisdiction that I can do if I choose that will enable me to fulfill that obligation of that oath that my soul made before I came down into this world. Now, what are those things? He's going to make a whole list here of really approaches that make a tzaddik different than the rest of us. And what the Alter Rebbe is going to suggest is when a person will meditate on these topics and look at them from the point of view of the way a tzaddik would look at them, with that he is fulfilling his obligation for that oath that he made before he came down into this world. So how are we going to see these types of things? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the things that are desires that I have that are coming from my normal animal soul, and look at them from a perspective of how a tzaddik would look at them. Okay, so we basically know there are different desires that human beings have, right? One of those desires is for example, for money, right? For becoming, a big shot and having a lot of money. Another one is for food items, just a desire to, eat and have that type of pleasure. Another desire is for having relations, right? That type of desire. So these are all desires that human beings have. Now, in essence, none of these desires have to be bad. They could all be completely kosher. For example, a person could get married. Not only a person could get married, it's the first mitzvah in the Torah, to get married and to have children. It's one of the holiest things that a person could do in this world, right? To get married, build a family. That is the way we are taught as Jews. That is the goal. That is the objective, right? So in that way, right, we are looking at this seeming, desire of the animal soul, but we could, in fact, turn it into a holy thing. It doesn't have to be a negative thing. Or food, for example. Food, right? We can't be in this world fasting. As much as nowadays it's very popular to do water fasts and all different types of fasts and things like that. That's very nice, and they're probably very healthy for you, as a matter of fact. But we have to eat at some point, right? People do eat. So eating is not a negative thing. Eating is a positive thing. But the question is, am I eating from an animalistic point of view, or am I eating from a humanistic point of view, an elevated point of view? There's two different ways you could do it. Similarly with parnasa, with regards to making money, with regards to having a business. Having a business is a very positive thing. We are expected to not only to have a family, but be able to provide for our family, right? So having a business where I spend the day working and making money in order that I should be able to provide for my family, not just to provide for my family, but to give money to tzedakah, to charity, to be able to pay for the education of my children, to pay for a house over our heads, to pay for food to put on the table, to do all the different things that are positive. These are all positive things. So what we're seeing here is that a lot of the desires that are possibly negative and could be coming from our animalistic side are not by definition animalistic. They don't have to be that way. The question is, am I going to allow my animalistic side to take me over? In other words, being an Orthodox Jew is very much about being in this world. We're not expected to be monks, for example, that are celibate, or to go off into the mountains somewhere and live by ourselves, right? This is the opposite of what, according to Orthodox Judaism, says that is not the goal. That is completely not the goal. The goal is to live, quote unquote, a very normal life, which means get married, have a family, build a home, go to work, do all these things. The difference, however, is that all of these things that we're talking about could be either in a manner of holiness or, God forbid, the opposite. Right? None of them are, neither of them have to be either negative or extremist or anything like that. They all have the potential for elevation. Our job now is to elevate these things. That's the job that we have in front of us. And that's what a Jewish person is supposed to do. That's what we're talking about. Okay? So I think that we'll talk about one of them. We'll go through a couple here, and we'll see how we go. Okay? Here we go. So it says like this. You should establish times for yourself to give yourself particular, so to speak, pieces of advice. To be disgusted by the evil. Kagon. For example, so for example, giving ourselves a way that we have to be disgusted by things that are evil or things that are bad. So for example, with regards to having relations, that if we look at the human body and we look at it instead of like from the outside in, look at it from the inside out, it's not necessarily going to be that attractive. It doesn't have to be something that is pulling us to such an extent. Right? Or like it says, V'kein kol minei matamim medanim nasim kol chemas male, etc. Or for example, all different types of food items, that if you look at what they all are going to become, for example, right? In other words, they're all coming out the same way from the body. That's what they look like, right? But yet, we spend so much effort on the excitement of the taste of these foods, and the look of these things, right? And we put so much effort into that, instead of looking at what's the panemius, what's the inner aspect of it. To have a relationship, for example, for a man to have a relationship with a woman, It's much more about what's inside the man or what's inside the woman, right? Who is the person, as opposed to just this unbelievable drive for the physical aspects. That's what he's trying to say. And if you really think about the physical aspects of both the man and the woman, right? And you look at it from the, so to speak, from the inside the flesh out, it's not so exciting, right? Like they tell a story in the Gemara, I think Dean Steinsaltz brings this, from the Gemara in Sanhedrin, that he said, what was the story? I can't remember exactly. That it was one of the Romans asked one of the Tanaim about, why, how come Adam, when Eve was made, Chava was made, he had to be put to sleep. So he brought out a big piece of meat, raw meat, with whatever it looked like, whatever, and it was like, you can imagine, not so pretty, whatever, and then they roasted it, and then he said, do you want it? Here, why don't you eat some of it? And he remembered like what the meat looked like. It was like so disgusting, right? When it's like, the idea is that when you look at really what's behind it all, right? Like a person that's ever seen shechting an animal, right? It's not so pleasant. It's very unpleasant, as a matter of fact. And yet we get so excited about the food dishes that we eat, right? So we need to eat food. But we need to recognize that in eating the food, it's there as a fuel. It's there as a fuel for the body. That's what it's there for. Not to be so immersed in the excitement of the actual physical food itself. That's not what we're supposed to be doing. And so that's the realm of a tzaddik. A tzaddik doesn't need this meditation. He naturally, when he looks at these things, he recognizes what they're here for. He recognizes that the food is here as a fuel for him. It's not this unbelievable taiva, this unbelievable desire that he has to get into. You and I, we are built differently. We see food, we see relations, we see these things from a natural point of view, that we do get excited about the taste, and we do get excited about the look, and we do get excited about these things. So the eitzah, the advice that the Alter Rebbe is giving us, is to try to go deeper, take a little bit of a deeper perspective on the things that are really driving me from an animalistic point of view. And is it really, really worth the unbelievable drive that my animal soul is trying to push me into? Or maybe I have to look at things from a different perspective, and I have to look at things from the deeper aspect of the physical world and what the physical world is about. And that's the advice that the Alter Rebbe is giving us here, in order that we should take away maybe a little bit of that heat, of that fire that we have for these different physical things. Okay? So we'll pick up from here, Emir Hashem, tomorrow, in tomorrow's class, and we'll finish the chapter, and we'll see where he goes from here with regards to this meditation that a tzaddik, or of being a tzaddik.